Hey, this is Black Zack. Thank you again for checking into my podcast and listening up. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave a comment, and hit my Cash App. I appreciate everything that you guys do. You're the most wonderful fans in the world. Thank you for tuning in. I'm trying to get through my life story here as best I can. That way you guys know a little bit more about me and who I am and kind of the way I think and process. This is all about my past crimes because I'm completely rehabilitated person right now, trying to make a living here off of YouTube and working a little bit, being an honest citizen. So thank you. I think the last time I was going back and forth with me being in jail in Georgia and Florida with my girl, Tara, that was with me, talking to you about some of the people I met. I've been trying to keep the line straight of what's going on, but there's so many great stories about that. I'm going to kind of focus on the different stories and the different events that happened, just to tune you guys in, because a lot of it is funny just from different hustles that I tried from some of the people that I met, because I was actually looking for the ultimate hustle. So of what would bring me millions, because I had a dream of being a millionaire, of stealing money, which was a dream, really should have been a nightmare. And in that dream, I'm following every type of hustle that you can imagine. I'm talking everything. At one point in time, people were filing other people's taxes, right? And I was actually chasing that as a dream and kind of caught it a little bit. So working up to all that, just want to tell you a couple of things. First of all, one of the things that we did that I thought was interesting and my girl loved the most was something called instant credit. So a lot of things wouldn't work unless you take if you're able to take different parts of the things that we were doing and you plug that in to what we were trying to do. So we had an ID Connect. We had one in California, which was the best IDs. We kind of had one in Florida, which kind of came on. I met them through a family member that had fake IDs and was cashing checks. And so once when I got out of jail and I was able to do my rental car hustle, this family member was telling me that she has a friend that was giving her a fake ID that was working for them to cash checks. And it was actually kind of working. This wasn't six, and I'm gonna get back into the six story. This is how I kind of finessed this fake ID person. So what happened was when they introduced us, the ID was $150. So I'm in a rental car, like I think it's like 2004, 2005. I'm in a 2005 rental car, and I pull up on these people. And well, they send me an ID. I send them a picture and they send me an ID, and I talk to them and I tell them I'm able to get rental cars, right? So they give me the ID for $150 and they're like, you're able to get rental cars. I'm like, yeah, if you want a rental car, let me know. What kind of rental car would you like? So they told me the type of car they wanted. I called, booked that type of car, went down to Avis, thanks to my friend Chris, showing me that I could rent more than one car. I go down to Avis, pick them up that type of car, come over and give them the keys and say, you have this car for 3 weeks. They're like, are you kidding? I'm like, all I ask is I get some free IDs. So they're like, hell yeah. So they would give me a free ID for a rental car. Now granted it was 2 of them. So I got 1 car for each partner, which means they owed me 2 IDs. By making that exchange and that barter, that gave me access to the IDs so that I could use them to cash checks or open up accounts that would allow me to print and deposit checks. So it became a beautiful relationship. But the mistake that they made was they trusted me because I was bringing them cars, and they invited me into their house. So while I'm at their house, they actually show me the ID machine. I said, where did you get this? And they showed me online where they ordered the machine. Well, the ID machine cost only like about, at that time, it's like about $600. And the reason I say this is because the family member that introduced me to him, one of my younger family members, that introduced me to them, I ended up telling them, I'm like, did you know that they're using a machine that only costs $600 for the machine? See, and my family member's like, $600? Like, why would I pay $600 when I could just take the ID and go cash a check? I'm like, and give them half. Like, why would I spend $600 to stop giving them half of all the money I make? It just can't. Sometimes it shows the mentality that we criminals sometimes have. It's like some people don't think it's worth investing $600 to be able to print out as many IDs you want and keep 100% of your proceeds. People don't think like a business owner. Some people think like a customer. So my family member had a customer mentality. So once they introduced me to the machine, I ordered the machine and actually got them to send me the template for the ID so that I could make my own IDs. So that's kind of like the kind of thought process I went through. Once I was able to make my own IDs, now I'm able to rent more cars because I can assume more people's information. And as I think I mentioned once in one of my videos, the way the rental car hustle worked, for one company, it was changing out the credit cards. For another company, like Hertz, it was not me just changing out the card. With Hertz, all I would need to do is show up with an ID from the state that you had an ID in, with that part of their number matching. So in some of the rental car places in the rapid rental or the preferred customer aisle, they have their rental car ticket hanging. The information on that rental car ticket is part of their driver's license number, their first and last name. And what happens is when they go to that car lot and the person gets in the car, they grab the rental car ticket. And as they're pulling out, they show the guard the rental car ticket. And all he does is matches the last 4 digits of your driver's license and the first and last name. If that matches, he gives you the ticket and he opens the gate and tells you to have a good day. Well, once I learned that, then I started making IDs from different states. So we would go to rental car lots, find people's names, right, and the last 4 of their numbers and write that down, order an ID with that name and those last 4 and just make another reservation for that person. All you have to do is call in and say, hey, this is Bill. I'm coming to pick up my car, but can I make another reservation 2 weeks from now? So once they book the second reservation, you show up with that ID and now you're using their card. So it turned out that actually I didn't even have to provide the credit cards anymore. I just made the fake ID and I got to keep all of my card numbers. So it allowed me to upgrade. So just by getting out and having a family member introduce me to someone that made ID cards, it actually upped the game that I had for rental cars, which became a problem later because being able to do that, obviously I felt that never tied it back to me. So I would actually do what Chris was doing, which was rent cars and let other people use them. Because all I ever did was show up with a fake ID. The card doesn't attach to me at all. It's not one of my cards. It's somebody else's card, and I give you the car on a fake ID. And most of the time, I would actually make the fake ID in that person and have that person go pick up the car and leave. So then I'm not even affiliated with it at all. So that became a hustle. So give me $100, $200, and I'll set you up with a piece of plastic and let you get a rental car for 3 weeks. Great hustle. So that worked out for a while. Until it didn't. Until it happened for so long that Hertz actually put a dragnet out. So we were doing it in Georgia, and like what had happened was a couple of runners were pulling out cars for different people. It was supposed to be my understanding that these cars were supposed to be going to chop shops or wherever. And it became a lot. I remember thinking to myself or talking to my girl and telling her, like, I'm tired of doing this. It's absolutely not worth $200 when we have all these other things going on. And I'm just giving you the problem of how that hustle came to crap. it became a lot. It just like took up too much of my time for too little money. And I wanted to stop. And I remember just thinking to myself, there's too many cars out I want to sell. And people were begging me, just one more, just do one more. And of course I would give in to their begging because it was people that I worked with. So what ended up happening is two of the people who were insistent on getting cars, because we were in the Atlanta area. And in Atlanta, it became impossible to get a car out. They were checking, they wanted to see the credit card and everything. They knew we had taken way too many cars. So then we would go to another one in Macon, and then Macon became a problem. Then we'd use another one in another close city to Atlanta was Chattanooga. I remember one time we sent someone all the way up to Greenville, South Carolina. And the two people who drove up to Greenville to pull a car, when they went into the lot to pull the car, the FBI and everything pulled them over before they got out of the lot and arrested them, took them to jail. Well, what's so funny about that is when they ended up going to jail, the people who begged me to do this when I wanted to stop, and I'm not blaming them because it's definitely my fault for even doing it, but they called and they made it seem as if I was responsible for that arrest. Like, we're up here, we're arrested, now what are you gonna do? And I wanted to help them. I told them that as much as I can, I'll give them like $4,000 or $5,000 to help cover their apartment, their expense, to get them moved in. But what am I supposed to do? I have no idea. I don't know what's going on. But that got pretty scary because obviously they started cooperating, and it wasn't just the Secret Service or the police. There was an investigator from Hertz himself, and he called me. He called me on the phone, which I had the phone number that I had given to them. See, I had my main phone, but I had a phone number upon which I dealt with different people. So the phone number upon which I dealt with them is the number he called me on. And he gave me a name, the name that I had been using, the name that they knew me by. And what's so funny about this is, so this is the funny part. So the person from Hertz had been doing his homework. He had tracked down, from what I see, every Hertz car that I had gotten for like the last 4 or 5 months. One of those Hertz cars was in a name, and I'll never forget this. So I had some workers that were white, the name Shane and Andrea, and I'm gonna get to their story too. That's another whole story. I had 2 workers that are white, Shane and Andrea. I sent Shane and Andrea to Arizona. They were in Phoenix, Arizona. And I used the name, the name was like Robert Turperton or something like that. It's an identity I had where I had a credit card in Rod's name. I had gotten that identity, and I took out a $500 secure credit card, and I used that name. It was one of the names that I saw on the sticker, so I used that name for them to get a car with, and I had gotten a credit card in his name, like a $500 card. I was planning on doing something else with it. But what had happened is we put the car that my girl and I had to go in the shop, and I needed to rent a car. So we printed out an ID in Rod's name, and I went to a Hertz right up the street from my house, and I took my ID and my credit card and rented a car. So the deal was Rod actually had 2 cars out. He had one in Arizona and one in Georgia, in Smyrna, Georgia, where we were living. But the 2 people that rented the car, one was white and I was black. So what happened was, when the guy from Hertz called me, he got on the phone and he was very smug. He's like, listen, he goes, I know what you've been doing, right? And he goes, I want to cut you a deal because we're coming to get you. This is exactly what he's telling me. I want to cut you a deal because we're coming to get you. Now, he calls me and we're driving around in a Hertz rental car, because after I talked to him, I'm returning this car. And that's where it gets interesting he knew about Robert. But when he first called me, he said, I know what you've been doing and I want to cut you a deal. I said, well, who is this? He said, I'm such and such with the security department of Hertz. And at my count, you have over 50 of my vehicles out. He said, I've only managed to get back 14, but I'm going to get back all of them. And he was right. What was bizarre is before all of that happened, people who had rental cars were calling me and saying that the police were outside their house sitting there. So, and then a tow truck would come and grab the car and leave. Like they would not walk around and ask any arrests. That happened to about 3 people. And I didn't know what was going on because I didn't believe them. I'm kind of like, well, maybe you did something or the vehicle's overdue. There's so many cars out, I don't even keep count. Maybe that car was overdue. And the guy goes, no, I actually took the car out like last week. I was supposed to have 2 more weeks of it. But I'm like, no, I think it's overdue. Or maybe that's not the one you thought. Or maybe the credit card. I had an excuse for it. And it made sense up until that guy called me. Then it's like, oh, crap. It's going down. So he said, at my count, you have 50 of my cars out. And I've only been able to get back over 50. I've only been able to so far get back about 15. He's like, I'm going to get all of my cars. But he said, what I want to know, right? And he goes, I'm willing to make you a hell of a deal. He goes, but I want you to tell me who inside my company are you working with? He says, that's the person who I want the most. I don't want you. I want to know who it is in my company that you're working with. And I said, well, I don't do a lot of telling, right? And he's like, that's fine. But he goes, you can make that decision now. But he goes, at some point, I'm going to make sure that you need to tell me who it is. I said, well, I'll tell you who it is. How much are you willing to pay? He says, I'll make you a monetary deal. He said, I'll pay you $10,000 if you give me the name of the person in my company that you're working with that's giving you the information to get all these cars. Now, I said, let me think about it and hung up. It's important that you guys understand that I wasn't working with anybody inside of his company. Nobody that worked for Hertz was helping me. It was all my setup and my doing of putting things together. Nobody that worked there helped me out. He just believed that it had to be for me to be able to have that type of inside information. When for me, it all just made sense as to the way their system worked in order to get cars. So when he called back, I had thought about how devious I am, or how devious I was at the time. I actually called in to customer service a couple of times. My mind had told me, because I wanted the 10 grand, I tell you, which was horrible of me. I actually called in a couple of times and I was going to get a couple of customer service people, maybe get their name and give it to him and try to get his $10,000. Fortunately, the customer service people I talked to, both were very nice. And my mind goes, I don't want to turn this woman in. That guy was pretty nice. I don't want to turn him in. So I ended up not giving him a name. When he called back, I told him I wasn't going to give him a name. I decided against it. He was livid. At that point in time, he told me, he's like, you know, we're gonna meet one day, don't you? I said, maybe. He said, oh yeah. He goes, I'm gonna make it my duty or life. I'm gonna make it my life or my duty. One of the ones he said to make sure that you and I end up in the same room. We never ended up in the same room. But I did hang up with a daunting feeling that like I had went too far. In fact, I ended up looking at my girl and telling her, okay, we're not messing with Hertz anymore. Let's just leave Hertz alone for a little bit. It's kind of crazy. That was how the rental car hustle went off the chain. Now let's take it over to the instant credit going off the chain. So instant credit was also another hustle that I learned while I was in jail based on the IDs. So what someone was telling me is they would go into the store and they would say my name is such and such. I forgot how he said that, and I think it was Six or it was somebody, how they would have the ID in the wallet with the name change where the ID wouldn't come out of the wallet, and he would show it, and he would give somebody's name and number and try to get instant credit. He was telling me that any of the stores you go in, if you show them your ID, give them your social and date of birth, what they do is they do a check on your FICO score. They do a FICO score check. If you have a certain FICO score, they extend you a certain amount of credit. And I learned that from another hustle, that it doesn't matter how deep the FICO score is, as long as you have that certain number, there were places that would immediately give you credit. One of those places was Target, which came out to be our favorite place. I don't know why, but another place was like Circuit City or Best Buy, furniture stores. So we would go and do what I called the Wheel of Fortune. Is it the Wheel of Fortune where the show where people would buy certain items, they'd win so much money, and then they would go on the shopping spree, say, I'll take the color TV and the couch and this, and he go, okay, that's such and such that you have this much money left. All right, give me the chair and the light, you know what I'm saying? That was the game we played with instant credit. I made IDs. So obviously I got people with excellent credit, and I would make an ID with their name, go into Target and go up to the register, present the ID and give the name and the social and the date of birth, and they would run it and you get approved for a Target card. Well, so once you were approved, Target would print you out a receipt. The receipt had a barcode on it. If they scanned the barcode, right, the barcode was your Target card. So whenever you go to pay, you give them the barcode, they scan the barcode, and you've paid. So we started doing instant credit. It became a game. My girl loved it. She absolutely loved it. She was so excited. So we would go in, I would go in as a person, we'd stand at the register, I'd give them the ID and give them the social and the birthday, and they type all the information in, and when it's approved, the little receipt would print out. She was so excited when it happened. I remember one time when the receipt printed out, before the person behind the register could grab it, she snatched it off the register. $3,000. And I remember being approved for $3,000. That's how excited she was at instant credit. It became like a game. So she would go in and they'd get approved and they print the receipt. And then what we do, we just walk around and buy stuff. Sometimes we'd sell it, or people would say, hey, if you get me this, and this from Target, I'll give you this much money. So then we'd take the instant credit and we'd get it. We could never, ever arrange to get the actual card because of the address that it went to. But what we do is we take the paper card and max it out within a day or two. And you know, at that point in time, Target had started becoming grocery stores too. They had super Targets. So, I mean, everything we needed was coming from, we had a house of Target, clothes, everything you wanted. But instant credit never stopped just at Target. You know, Best Buy for electronics. We would get that. We would go and do living room sets and furniture, instant credit. We'd go to a furniture store and get approved for credit and be like, you want us to deliver it? Absolutely not. We actually have a U-Haul right outside. It's funny you mentioned that because we drove here in a U-Haul ready to take our own stuff home with us. Like, you did? Of course we did. You didn't even know if you would get approved. Well, we had backup. She had one, I had one. We're leaving out of here with a house full of stuff. I'm gonna tell you that right now. And we'd run instant credit. This went on for a few months. It's to the point where we had so much for ourselves that we actually just started selling profiles and IDs for you to go do your own instant credit. Now, naturally, when we took advantage of that, they started to get smarter, and what they did was they would ask the people credit or personal questions. Like, so now when you apply for instant credit, it'd say they need to answer a few questions to prove their identity. Well, when they started doing that, naturally that should have taken out most of the people who were pulling off the instant credit game. But that didn't happen for us because luckily for me, one time when I was in jail, I met a gentleman that worked for a collection agency. His name was John. John worked for a collection agency and we talked. When John got out, I think we had given him a couple of things from Target, hooked him up, helped him out with a little money. And John says he pulls a LexisNexis report. He said the information they're asking you for is the same information I can get from work. We said, are you serious? He said, I'm absolutely serious. So we would give John, when we'd get the profile, we'd give it to John, and John would pull the LexisNexis report. So we had profiles with a fake ID and an envelope with LexisNexis. So what my girl would do is whenever you went in to get instant credit, you would put your phone headphones in your ear and you'd walk around the store like with your cell phone, like you're shopping, but she's on the line. So you would get approved for credit. Once you got approved, they say, well, we're gonna need to ask you some verifying questions. Okay, what type of questions? So they ask you the question, like you had a 2005 Chevrolet. What color was it? And what you would do is, my girl is in your ear on the phone. You'd say, what, a 2005 Chevrolet? Yeah, you had a 2005 Chevrolet. What color was it? And she'd go through the papers and she'd go, it was green. Oh, yeah, my 2005 Chevrolet, it's green. Yeah, that's right. Once you answer all three of the questions correct, they would approve you for the credit, and then you would do your game show shopping. I'll take items 1, 2, 7, 9, and 15 for $7,000, Bob. No problem. You want it delivered? Absolutely not. I drove here in a U-Haul. So just load that stuff on the truck and you'll never see me again in your life. And you're out of there. That's how we were doing instant credit. Now, unfortunately, that was one of the arrests that my girl and I had. It's instant credit at Sears. So we have a house. This is in Cobb County again. This is our second arrest in Cobb County. And we wanted a washer. I said, let's go get a new washer and dryer. We wanted one of those stylish colored washer and dryers that we can put in our new house. So we went to Sears. Now, it was a little bit of a debate because Sears had an outlet store that I wanted to go to. And she said, no. Let's go to the mall. I said, no, let's go to the outlet store. She goes, no, the mall has the same thing as the outlet store. Anyway, we decided to go to a mall and do our instant credit. So we went to the mall. I presented an ID. Of course, I'm young then. I'm in my 30s. And I presented an ID of a gentleman that's actually the age I am right now, right? And so it worked. He got approved for $6,000 and we got the washing machine we want. But rather than us take the washing machine and go, we actually decided we're gonna shop around a little bit. So we did a little shopping around. And as we're shopping around, generally, when you're doing crime, for those of you that have never committed a crime, generally when you're committing a crime, there is I call it a spiritual reckoning that you feel. Like you always know, you get a bad feeling whenever something bad's gonna happen. That's how I think for me, that's the ethos and the spiritual realm talking to you. So I'm in the store and I have a bad feeling in my gut. And what's so weird is I'm kind of like, okay, I want to leave. I want to leave right now. And we had separated. Like I was talking to somebody about something and she had went to look at something else and we had separated and I had this bad feeling. So I excused myself from the person. I'm going to look for her. And when I see her coming, she walks up to me and says, let's get the hell out of here right now. So it's the joint feeling. So we got together. When we collided together, we walked as briskly as we can to the door, out the door. And as we're approaching our U-Haul van, right, and we're getting in, we see coming up the road 2 police cars. So we get in the van and we're about to pull off and they're screaming, there they are, there they are, there they are. And the police cars converge on us. They like pass us, then they turn around and they converge on us and take us to jail. That was our second trip to Cobb County Jail. But they arrested us for that. That's how the instant credit got us busted. But before that, I would venture to say that we probably pulled off more than 30 different, I'm talking her and I, 30, like 15 apiece. But we sold probably another 45. But her and I did about 30 instant credits. And I'd say the smallest one was $3,000. So if you just take 10, the largest one was 15,000, but that was the largest. Most of them were between 7 and 12. But 30 instant credit, if you just put the average and say $5,000 a piece times 30, that's like $150,000. No, it's more. No, 10 would be 5. Yeah, that's like $150,000 worth of merchandise. And trust me, whenever we got approved for credit, we tried to max it out right then and there. Houses full of furniture for friends and everything. There was a good friend of ours, of my girl, his name was Willie. She was a fan of his, and whatever he wanted, she gave him, which also include instant credit. She got him furniture, if he wanted furniture, whatever, especially trips and everything. And she took absolute good care of him. And a lot of people benefited because we donated the furniture extra, we changed them out, we put furniture in about 4 or 5 different houses, instant credited it. And that was, like I said, that was one of the little side hustles we did that built off the other hustle that we had. Another hustle that we would do is whenever we were hitting the mailboxes in order to get the checks that we had learned, what we found out you could also do is when you take a business check, is you could actually open up, and again, I think I spoke about this on a podcast with Matt. So if I get a business check from Empire Roofing, payable, or let's say a school district paid Empire Roofing to fix their roofing. So the Tampa School District hired Empire Roofing, and Empire Roofing sent the school district a bill. The school district would send Empire Roofing a check for like $25,000, $30,000, whatever work they did. Well, we would go out at night and take checks out of mailboxes. If I got my hands on that check, what I found out we could do is we could open up a business account with a similar name as Empire Roofing. But we could be like, we open up a business account, so we open up a business, we do an LLC or start a small business called Empire Roofing Supplies, or Empire Supplies for Roofing. Once we got the business name, we would take that immediately with a fake ID into a bank and open up a bank account under Empire Supplies Roofing. We would open up the account, and then we would take that check and deposit that check in that account. Well, because that's an actual check, that check would actually clear. Once we did that, and one check that cleared was to a trucking company that was over $100,000. They made us wait 8 days, but the check cleared and we pulled the money. Once that actual check was processed, the money always came. Sometimes because I printed checks, what I would do is I would print a alternate check using somebody else's routing and account number and actually give that check to the company that it was supposed to go to. Meaning Tampa Schools played Empire's Roofing. Well, I intercepted the Empire Roofing check and I kept their check, but I wrote Empire Roofing another check, right, a counterfeit check based on another company's account. So whenever the crap hit the fan, it wouldn't be sorted out until after the check that I had would clear. Needless to say, I did that, and I never had a check not clear, nor did I ever get questioned or approached about anything doing something like that. What has always been the downfall for me has always been when you get into the credit and the credit cards. That has always been the nature of my arrest, except for my federal arrest, which came afterwards, which is off of another different aspect. Once I was in Cobb County Jail, the final person I met, I'm gonna call him Neo. Neo was one of the most brilliant people I've ever known. He was an anti-government person. He hated the government. And with him and my girl, like the next level, something I didn't think was possible was for the next level to have a next level, which is my federal offense, which I'm going to go through in detail to talk about what we were doing, what actually led up to my federal arrest, the breakdown, what caused the arrest, and all the people I work with. That was the time when I actually put together and how I came up with it, because I actually came up with it while I was in jail for the instant credit scheme. Because when I went to jail for the instant credit theme, when I first got into my dorm, one morning I woke up, I started, walking back and forth because that's the only exercise you get. And as I was walking, I said to myself, okay, what I'm doing is not working. If I'm going to be rich doing this, I'm going to have to completely come up with a different strategy. I'm going to talk to you of how my thought process with that, what happened, how it came together when I got out, and what ultimately led to my arrest federally on my next podcast. So I'm praying that you hold on and you watch that. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment, and hit the Cash App. Hey, I appreciate you guys checking in and watching all of my podcasts. It's been a pleasure coming to you guys, and I can't wait to expand my channel. All right, thanks.